The Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution is making damning accusations against Public Protector Busisiwe Mkhwebane. The organisation says she deliberately watered down her report on the Vrede dairy farm scandal to protect ANC Secretary-General Ace Magashule and former Minister Mkhwebane. For more on this story, we're joined by KSAC's Lawson Naidoo, who joins us via Skype, I understand. A very good morning to you, Lawson. So you are accusing the Public Protector of essentially shielding Ace Magashule and Mkhwebane, but what evidence are you relying on to make this claim?
Good morning and thank you very much. As you may recall, KSAC instituted an application in the High Court in February this year seeking to set aside Advocate Mkhwebane's report on the Vrede dairy farm because we felt it was a superficial report that did not seek to seriously investigate the allegations that have been made regarding the Vrede dairy farm, many of which are in the public domain. As a result of that application, we were entitled to the record of decision from the Public Protector's Office, which we received towards the end of March. And having gone through that record, it now transpires that a provisional report into this matter had been conducted and concluded by Advocate Thuli Madonsela while she was still the Public Protector. And what is now clear is two things. Firstly, Advocate Mkhwebane made no reference to this provisional report in her own report that was published earlier this year. And secondly, having now gone through that provisional report, it is quite clear that Advocate Mkhwebane has watered down a number of the recommendations and aspects of remedial action that Advocate Madonsela had proposed, which included further investigations into the involvement of Ace Magashule and Mkhwebane, as well as disciplinary action needing to be taken against the head of the Department of Agriculture in the Free State, Mr. Tabete. None of those was done. Other remedial action and recommendations were altered without any explanation. And it really does seem as if Advocate Mkhwebane has gone out of her way to protect highly connected political individuals in the course of this so-called investigation.
But what motivation would she have to protect the likes of Ace Magashule and Mkhwebane?
Well, that's a question that Advocate Mkhwebane would need to answer, is to provide reasons as to why she changed those reports. It does seem quite clear that it was an attempt to protect, as I say, politically connected individuals. It's interesting now that appearing before Parliament just over a week ago, Advocate Mkhwebane is now saying that she's prepared to reopen the investigation into the former Premier Ace Magashule and the former MEC for Agriculture Mkhwebane, coming as it does late in the day after she had deliberately removed those recommendations from the provisional report, really calls into question her independence, her commitment to act without fear or favor, and really does demonstrate that as she is facing increasing pressure in terms of her capacity to occupy this office, she's seeking to now curry political favor, but by wanting to undertake perhaps investigations that are seen to be more politically convenient at this point in time.
The Public Protector has spoken, Lawson, about financial issues and a lack of other resources as one of the reasons, or some of the reasons, why she has not been able to look into some of these issues on her desk at length, including the Estina issue, which she said had been concluded by her predecessor, Thuli Madonsela. And Madonsela had herself, during her tenure, said that budgetary constraints were a major issue. Why is it that the likes of yourself aren't as believing of that explanation now that it's Mkhwebane who's in charge of the office?
Well, firstly, let me say that Advocate Mkhwebane has indicated to the court that she will not oppose KSAC's application to set aside this report. She therefore seemingly accepts that the report is unlawful and should be set aside. Secondly, she has raised this issue once again of financial constraints in her explanatory affidavit in this case, but she does so at a very superficial level by talking about the general financial constraints that the office faces. And as you correctly point out, the financial constraints faced by the Office of the Public Protector, as do many other Chapter 9 institutions, are not a new phenomenon. Advocate Madonsela raised this continuously while she held office. And the concern here is that Advocate Mkhwebane hasn't pointed to any specific financial constraints that prevented her from conducting a proper investigation in this matter. She raises very general cases, and we provide examples whereby she could simply have put questions to those implicated in the Vrede dairy farm with very little cost involved. She removed a remedial action that would have required other organizations such as the Auditor General and the Special Investigating Unit to conduct further investigations, which would not have been a cost to her office but to those institutions. And she does not explain why it was she found the resources in order to amend Advocate Madonsela's report, but could not find the resources to conduct other similar simple processes as part of this investigation. So we don't buy for 1 minute that excuse that she's making about financial constraints, because she has not demonstrated how it impacted on this investigation. And I think also in connection with this lame excuse, one has to point out to what, how does Advocate Mkhwebane prioritize investigations in her office? This was an investigation that implicated very, very senior political figures in the Free State, and yet she sought to downplay the importance of that. So those are questions that I think that she needs to answer in terms of how she conducts her office.
There are those listening to this conversation this morning, Lawson, who will say that you have gone and personalized the running of the Office of the Public Protector, and that you are part of some agenda really to try and get rid of Advocate Mkhwebane. Are you?
We're part of an agenda to seek to ensure that constitutional institutions perform their functions as the Constitution requires it to do so. If Advocate Mkhwebane is incapable of running that office in the way that the Constitution envisages, then that is a matter for Parliament to deal with, not for us to deal with, and it's not an aspect. We have taken issue with the substance of this report, or rather the lack of substance in her report, and saying that she is incapable of conducting this investigation now. We've changed the order that we seek from the court from one requiring her to reinstitute the investigation to saying that we simply want the investigation to be declared unconstitutional, and not to ask her to continue to investigate, because she has now proven to be incapable of doing so in this particular matter.
All right. Lawson Naidoo, thank you for your time this Sunday. That was CASAC Executive Secretary Lawson Naidoo speaking to us.